Cool. Hammond, welcome back. It's been a little while, but good to be back in action.
Yeah, excited. Exciting episode. Every time we're looking at unlocking things for entrepreneurs.
That's it. So I know we are going to do some updates in terms of some of our brands and also some client brands in terms of some of the results we've been focusing on achieving, and then also how people can emulate some of the I guess like strategies and tactics that we've been able to see in the last kind of like 2 to 4 weeks specifically. So let's jump right in.
Yes. So we have really exciting case studies. Actually, with our own brand, Bisous, we ran out of stock and we paused the ad for like a month. And then we started a new strategy with new creatives and we cracked like 45K in under 30 days. It's probably 40 days, but really fast growth in terms of our own brands. And yeah, very, very exciting case study to look at
Mm.
and other like creatives and things that we explored in our launch.
Mm. And I think the cool thing about like this in terms of just to make it really clear for people as well, like I think that's one of the best things about this community specifically is like we do the testing so you can come in and copy almost what we do and get success. And I think that's something that we've seen our clients seeing a lot of success with in the last like 4 to 6 weeks because of some of the creatives and strategies that we are testing. So maybe let's start with some of the results. So Bisou, we've scaled up to like 45K a month. And then I think the other brand we've also had some pretty good results with more recently is the Elevate 8 brand. What are
Yes.
those kinds of results looking like at the moment as well?
Yes, it's actually like a really, I would say, a fast growth where the store, like again, built from scratch with Ecom Capital and got to the level where within 90 days, like cracked 90K. So solid performance overall. And right now we're doing like 15K weeks with profit targets. And the structure of the ads and everything is like exactly the same as Bisou one. So we're kind of using the same structure. And as you mentioned, we share how we're doing the creatives. We literally put in, this is my ad, this is my content, can you do something and use the same structure and same scaling structure to scale your business? And this is how you can replicate the results.
Mm. So what are some of the things, let's maybe start with the Bisou company first. What are some of the specific things that we have done in that brand, particularly in the last like 30, maybe 45 days, that have helped tremendously with scale and growth and then also maintaining good, strong profit?
Absolutely. So starting out, actually, Bisou, you probably know, we already did 30, 40K a month last year, but run out of stock, Q1, pause the ads to just the email. So we're doing about 1,000 a month or 1.5. And coming in, the goal was to focus on creatives. And we had the ad account paused, there's nothing in there. So we started with a very structured, I would say, campaign, what I call like a sandbox campaign, where we tested different creatives with different angles. And we were testing aggressively. We pushed right away the first week, 10 different creatives, testing and seeing which one is the best. And doing the volume, so doing more creatives actually helped us crack a good one. And that's when we started scaling aggressively that particular angle and also shared it with others. Keep in mind that like when we got that winning creative with 3, 4 ROAS right away, and our break even is like 1.3, 1.4. We actually shared it with the community, with the mastermind. They saw it, they saw the angle, they saw the ad, and we got this massive returns to our client just because we are actually testing for them.
Mm. And so we're testing a lot of creatives. What's the structure in the ad account that you're testing? Because one thing that I always find as well is like, especially if you use like a CBO structure, you might load 15 creatives in there. All the budget goes into one creative. You don't really effectively test.
Mhm.
Theoretically, you don't like put any budget behind any other creatives, and Meta just pushes all the budget into one. So, what's the structure that you're using at the moment in that campaign to be able to effectively get testing happening?
So yeah, so keep in mind that I do believe in both structures. So doing an A plus campaign, which is like a CBO broad where you run all the creatives. Problem is this structure, I noticed that it work. Like it's a really strong structure if you have good creatives. If you have good creatives, Meta will find them very fast and just it's gonna right away perform. But if you're having bad creatives and you don't know like which one is going to be working the best, then having them in an A plus campaign sometimes doesn't perform, and an ABO setup would be much better because you can allocate budget per creative. So what I did with Bisou, because I was not sure because we paused the ads for a while, I actually did an ABO setup where we did one ad set, one ad. And every time I can see what ad set is performing and I can see the ad. So I can actually eliminate the doubt of just meta optimizing and picking randomly a creative or maybe seeing some early signals not giving enough spend for the others. I was actually looking at equal budget for all the creatives, and I can see which one is performing and scaling the ones that are performing. I was actually scaling vertically, so I would increase the budget on the ad set itself, and for the, let's say, anything that didn't perform, which is pause it right away. We give a little bit of time and
Got
then
it.
we pause. So it was
Got
really
it.
a structure that's around we control rather than meta controls. And again, this is not a bad, again, I don't have anything against the A plus. I actually believe it's a good setup. You just think about it as you're driving a car like automatic or manual. Sometimes manual is better if you know how to drive and how you test things.
Right, I see. So, so let's say, for example, I wanted to implement something like that specifically in terms of this structure in terms of having more of an ad set budget, like really, really, really controlling and driving manual. What would you suggest in terms of like budget per ad set? Like if we get down into that granular level, like I want to test a bunch of creatives, but I also want to make sure that I'm giving them enough budget per each ad set to actually perform. So what would that look like on a micro level to really give people and their creatives enough kind of oxygen to see if it's good?
Yes, I actually started with low budget. So I did, normally I would do between $10 and $50 per ad set, just this is a
Mm,
testing budget. If your price, let's say, is above $100, I would go with $50 because it's going to be a higher budget, but I'll make faster decisions. So I'll run, let's say, 5 creatives or 10 creatives. I know it's a very high budget strategy, but if you have a higher ticket, you can really test more and kind of gain time. So this is on a higher side. Now, what I did with Bisous, because we're in that 50 AOV range, I actually did that $10 a day. So I did $10. We tested multiple creatives. So if I was to look at the numbers, $10 a day, 10 creatives, that's $100 a day. And you can optimize within 2 or 3 days your ads and look at what's the best performer and start taking action based on that. So it's really a simple structure. An ad set broad, and you put in your creatives. There is a small change that I did in terms of the setup itself. When you have in Meta, let's say all placement, I went with manual and I picked just the feed and let's say the reels
got
and
it.
stories. This is just to control a little bit more the ad spend where it's going.
Mm. And so like because I've always kind of like done something where it's kind of like a 2 to 3x of the purchase, the cost per purchase. So let's say, for example, I have $100 product and my, CPA goal is like $30. 3x that kind of value around $90 per ad set or something like that per day. Like, do you have some rules around that you use specifically? I guess it's based on the person a little bit and how much budget they have and their kind of own financial position. But are there some rules that you usually follow around that?
So I try to keep it actually between 10 and 50, regardless of, let's say, I don't go above 50 in terms of testing because I still want to have multiple assets rather than just one spending, let's say, most of the money. So I try to diversify. Now, 50 would be if I'm in that $100 range, and anything, let's say, we're in that 50 and lower, I'll go with just 10 and 20. So most of the time it's either 10 or 20 or 50. And in terms of the budget, I do look at, let's say, we're spending one time on CPA. That's not, for me, that's like not enough to make a decision, but it's good to look at the CPC and seeing if you have bad creatives and you work on that in the meantime. But I do look at 2 to 3x spend to even make a decision because otherwise you don't have enough data.
So what you're saying is, when you say 2 to 3x spend, so each of those particular ad sets would actually spend 2 to 3x the cost per acquisition goal.
Yes. So
Got it.
before I make like a bigger decision. So yeah,
Got
in
it.
terms of
Okay.
pausing and scaling.
So you say, for example, just so this is really clear, so like $100 kind of like product price, $30 CPA goal, and you'd at least run like 60, maybe even $90 through that over a couple of days before you even factor any form of decision making.
Yes, unless we have the only reason why I would pause before that, there's actually one I would say exception. There's always an exception. If you
Of course.
have a cost per click of $10 or something crazy, in that case, then we're not even supplying good traffic, and this creative
Mm.
might be very, very much a bad one. So unless we have really like alpha metrics and things that you can see right away, it's not going to work. I'll keep the ad spend and kind of look at my funnel and see if it's converting.
Got it. Understood. I see what you're saying. Yeah. And what's the like? Let's say from like a management or like being in the account and operating this strategy versus just doing more of like an advantage plus strategy, doing abroad, rolling the creatives in there. There's some different kind of things that you need to know from like an operational perspective to manage this strategy versus doing like an A plus, right?
Yeah. So an A plus campaign, you have like less control. You're pretty much just putting the creatives in there and just waiting and then adding new creatives. But the problem is you can't pick the spend. You can put in 10 creatives, but one would receive all the spend and you're like like you have all the rest of the creatives that you don't know if they're good or not. So the if you're doing an A+ campaign, you're not in control. Like you're not in control of the management of the spend, and you need to look at the data. And obviously, you can leverage the A+ campaign to do new creative, and that's all good. But you're gonna have limitation in terms of just all the volume of creatives you have versus the meta distribution of spend. So if you're doing an A+ campaign, you technically all you can do is look at the best creative, do similar to those creatives, add
Mm,
them in the campaign and keep doing this, versus this setup where you're actually looking at all your creatives, regardless if they're good or bad, you're giving them the same chance and you're making a decision based on that. So it's really more manual. It's also taking a little bit more risk because you're managing all the creatives and looking at all the budget for all the creatives. So there is, I would say, an element in control in terms of that, but also is a loss of, I would say, using almost like all the back end of meta in terms of the AI and decision making. So I think there's like a balance, but yeah, I think the difference is one, you're not in control of all the creatives. The other one, you control the spend.
got it. Understood. So I think as long as people understand that, for example, like that strategy just requires a little bit more management, a little bit more work, focus, tracking, making sure that you're in the account probably more than what you would be if you were just putting the A plus live and then changing creatives whenever the creatives need to be changed.
Yes, absolutely. And keep in mind this ABO setup. I did share it with all the clients we have, so they see it. They see my decision making, so that they can actually use the same structure, the same decision making, and even sometimes I almost like customize that strategy for them when they hop on the call, show me the account, and I would give them, hey, this is how I'm making this decision in your case, and
Mm,
this is how you can use everything we're doing so that you can win. And I do believe like very deeply, if you're running ads right now and you have a business that's kind of almost like risking things for you and giving you the information, you can leverage this and make massive numbers. And I do believe actually Elevate Workwear and Rui he's really using a lot of our testing and things and just leveraging that in his business without having to lose the money, because we're testing again on an ABO setup all these creatives and we have a massive winner. Like recently, literally I shared with him and he was like literally like, hey, this is a big winner, I'm going to use this structure, I'm going to scale my business. So I think we're taking more risk, but also the reward for our clients and also just us leading in the market is massive.
mm. And so now let's go into the creative as well, because I think that, like from what I'm hearing about this like golden creative that's been produced recently, it seems like it's producing some great results for a lot of our clients. What is the creative, and why is the creative working so well at the moment?
Okay, sharing it live. Hey, what's the creative? It's like a special one. But yeah, so the creative itself, it's actually it's like a very simple creative that Nair, like credit to her, she did like all the work on the branding. So I don't want to say like, hey, I'm actually like doing things here. I'm just managing the accounts, but working with Naira, with Tanita, like all of them, they're really working hard in terms of content and ideas. So it's a very simple creative that Naira, I would say, submitted to me, and I was like, "Hey, this seems like a solid one." And it's really
Right,
just saying we won't do this again, and we're showing our product with an offer. So it's a simple ad
right.
with the wording and the text. We won't do this again. And when you see the ad in front of you, it's almost like this business, they're not going to do what again? And they click on it. It's just
Mm,
like a very, very good cost per click. And the conversion is so high, regardless of the offer you have, it's because they're thinking about this business, they're not going to do this offer again.
right.
And this ad, again, very simple, three pictures, and in the corner, we won't do this again. And it just got us like great ROAS right away. And we have a few versions that I didn't really say here, but they're really performing well right now, like new
Got it.
versions.
Yeah, fantastic. Wow. So, such a simple creative. It's not like incredibly complex. It doesn't have like too many components in it overall, but very, very, very exciting to hear those kinds of results. And also like I think similar to what we mentioned at the start as well, and similar to what Reese is doing by just being able to capture content that we test, put those things live, and then generate like 6 or 7 ROAS. I'm like, it's super fulfilling to be able to help clients with that. It's amazing.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's really like I think when I think about it, it's almost like if you know how to observe, you're gonna make money. It's like you just
Mm,
need to observe and kind of like learn how to do this in your business. But we're showing you this is how it's done, and these are the data, and these are the wrong. Like I literally show this is a bad creative. This didn't work, and you don't have to do
mm,
this style. and this is a good one, and this actually worked super well. And we're always excited, like when we see like a specific format that's working, we just share that right away. Keep in mind that, as I mentioned, there is like we're doing more versions of this, so it's not just this. We won't do this again. I'm doing multiple other versions with even different like variations. For example, this won't happen again, which is a little bit different than we won't do this again. So really playing on this more and more.
Got it. I see what you mean. Yeah, fantastic. Now I know that there's also, I know in terms of Bisous specifically, I know there's been some optimizations on like the post-purchase. I believe I know Tinity's been working on that to improve the post-purchase flows and drive the conversion rate. I think the conversion rate went from like 5 to 18% over the last month. So it, any commentary on that in terms of what we've also done or changed or improved on that side that might be helpful for our listeners?
Absolutely. So we like when you look at any like successful scale, the multiple components, not just one. So the first was the creative driving really a lot of interest, and then you have the website where we actually improve the process when they add to cart, see that pre-purchase upsell, and then we have the post-purchase. So the pre-purchase actually pushed our conversion like rate aggressively. Like the main conversion rate in the store, we're always at about 5-6%. It went to 8%. This is just with Naira fixing the cart, and she really was obsessive about the pre-purchase, how to fix it. And it's actually, again, if you look at every scenario, how you can win in the business, it's really fixing those things. So we did fix that part that actually contributed to our conversions. We also launched a new color, like in terms of the product, that really pushed more interest in terms of coming in as a new launch. This is why I consider this as a case study where we launched a new product, because technically we launched a new color, which we didn't have in the past. So it's very similar to that type of a new product. And then the post-purchase, obviously optimization, where it did improve our AOV a little bit. So we got like a small percentage push. And all of these, if you add up, you have 45K in like, again, 40 days approximately since we started the ads. So it's really solid, I would say, push.
And so one thing that I think is really key here as well is, so I think the sequencing, right? And so like if you think about what we did here with this brand, it's not done randomly and it's not done just like ad hoc. You know what I mean? It's exactly following our conversations that we've had around start with the traffic. Once the traffic is good and you have the traffic at cost, move over to your store, increase conversion rate. Then once you increase conversion rate, do what? Average order value up. And so like we literally are following this exact sequence right now as we continue to optimize Basu. And so is there anything you can talk to on that? Because I just think obviously going through it now and then as we're kind of like tweaking and adjusting, and I know that Naira's focus now is exclusively like on average order value, and she wants to get that up to like 70 $80 because that's going to obviously help us to scale to over 100K months. Any commentary on that sequencing or why it's important? Any things
Absolutely.
that like maybe you would do differently or had done differently?
Yeah, just to be clear, I actually deeply believe that it's not just the ad. The ad account work is very minimal. It's just organizing things, and it's almost like you need to have all the setup and sequence organized. I'm actually gonna have the privilege to work with Nair. She's really obsessive about things and sort of working on them and pretty much looking at the gaps. Because when I started increasing the ad spend, she was looking at the landing page conversions and she was looking at how to improve that funnel. And that made the work much easier for me just in terms of looking at the ads, because if you're running on the back end a website that's optimized, you're gonna get more conversions. You're gonna have your ads performing super well. I'm like, hey, ROAS is so good. It's because you have a good website and you have a person working on the back end really looking at that optimization. So as we increase the ad spend in the ad account, we actually had a first. If you look at our numbers the first week, they were terrible. We spent
Mm.
200 and the ROAS was like 0.8. So it was almost like it's discouraging. There's nothing. And then I started increasing a little bit the ad spend because the team there was also working on creative. So she was giving me all those concept and ads, and I was just pushing the buttons, just adding the creatives in the ad account, and that's how we started getting that first traction. It's just by working on the creatives. It's really, if you look at the ingredients, they're the drivers. It's not necessarily just the ad account setup. I actually believe that if you're a business owner and thinking about a hack here in the ad account or a hack there, it's more of you need to work on your content, work on your website, work on optimizing things. Obviously, we look at analyzing numbers and we're, like I would say, more experienced in terms of looking at decision making, but that full process, it just starts with a good structure. So we started increasing the traffic. She started working on optimizing the conversion rate on the back end, and that's how we supply the store with all the ingredients to get to the 45K. Same thing with Rias and his business. He looked at successful stores, looked at what they're doing, and started using exactly the same structure to the point where I remember when I was talking to him, I showed him like under the add to cart level, I was like, hey, we're doing this big sale button, this the big sale option here. Can you add it? He was like, yes, absolutely. Next day, he added his conversion rate up. Those kind of fast feedback, you use what's working and you leverage. That's how you can scale fast results.
Mm. It's it's so fascinating because like I was speaking to another client in the community earlier this week as well, and as you start to have like some success, you want to do more and you want to do more of everything, right? And so it's like, I'm going to do influencers. I'm going to launch new products. I'm going to start spending on a different platform. I'm going to do organic, and it's so funny because like that excitement and that kind of like enthusiasm to do more of a whole bunch of things tends to really like derail you and slow down the
Yes,
progress. And so I think it's very important that like the way that the sequence has been done, it's like advertising and creative. Let's get that fixed, right? And at the same time, obviously, Naira is working on everything conversion focused, and she's dramatically improved the conversion rate on the website, which is really, really, really pivotal in terms of helping lift that
yes,
profitability. And so it's so vital, I think, that like people listening, it's like focus. Like focus on
yes.
one thing at a time, drive it up until
And
it's fixed, shift into the next thing. And it's one key thing that I really want to make sure that people are taking out of this so far. Yeah.
absolutely. And it feels like we're doing a lot of work, but in reality, we're not. If you do the right
Correct.
sequence, if you do it consistently, you can make massive numbers. Think about this. The brand we talked about that launched not like 4 months ago or so, and right now like crossing 15K with profit targets, really strong profit targets. It just he did the sequence the right way, and he did it
Mm,
consistently. He didn't do any Instagram. He didn't do like anything on the side, just paid ads, but consistent
mm,
obsession about the structure and doing the right actions and really looking at how the business are operating, like Bisous, how they're operating, and using that into its advantage right away without hesitation. If you do this consistently, you're going to be outperforming all the people in the market because they're just distracted.
yeah. I couldn't agree more in terms of that structure. I think it's so key. And I think the challenge lies more so like from myself going through, you know, through this multiple times and feeling that level of like distraction, feeling that level of like excitement that you start to do into different things, like it really does become a game of just being like, just fix the boring stuff and get it right and make sure it's working. Because the thing that like, if I think about, for example, the conversion rate, and I know Naira has been working on that for some time now, fixing, tweaking, adjusting, optimizing, and it's like, it's not fun. You know what I mean? Like you're speaking to the developers, you're going back and forth, you're changing this, you're moving the button up, moving the button down, at the same time driving traffic, looking at it over and over again, testing. Oh my God, it didn't work. Like it's very tedious. You're so in the micro of the detail, and it's so easy to want to just be like, oh, I'm gonna go and send some messages for influencers, or like I'm gonna go and like see if I can start designing a new product because it feels good and it's fun, and it's just like
Or
to
the
sit
easiest is like,
there.
I don't believe in ecom. Like, hey, this
Ex
is like too much work.
yeah, and like the beauty. I mean, like even thinking about, for example, Bisous specifically, I'm like, now that that conversion rate is at like 8% or 8, I think months to date, I think it's like 8.5 or something percent, something crazy high, and it probably will get higher and higher. But I'm like, that starts to be one of the fixed metrics of the business. Like it's like that probably won't drop that much. Like maybe with offers it might fluctuate a little bit. I'm like, but that's a control now. And it took boring, dirty work to go from 5.5 to 8, right? And it was like singular focus. But now it's like we'll see the profitability of that business continue to grow because of that very specific focus. So it's just very
So
important. I think that that focused attention, that pushing on to one thing at a time, and similar to what you said, obsessing on it. Like you have to like obsess very, very closely and really want to get it right. Like get it right. Yeah.
yes, and also I think in terms of the management of the ads, something I faced myself, and also even Reels, like we were talking about this, but increasing your ad spend, taking the risk, not selling for just a certain amount. Because a
Mm,
lot of people when they launch their business, like, hey, like with Bisou, we probably within like a week we're already seeing the volume, but we could have just kept it at that level and just like, hey, just keep it, and then let's
yeah.
just sustain for now this volume, but session about pushing to the next level and operating as this is not enough.
Mm,
45K, it's not enough. Like we want the million, we want the bigger number. And
mm,
to do this, you need to have those targets by default when you're working your business. If you're thinking about, hey, I'll just do 50K and I'll settle with this, we'll make sure that it's profitable, maintain it. No, we want to make a business that actually would crush it and dominate in the market. And you need to have
mm,
those targets by default. And with Rias, he was actually when we talked like in the past in a call, he was like literally I paused all the ads because of a bad week. Like I paused a lot of them. I was like,
mm, mm.
just 1 week, right? She was like, just 1 week. Like, no, you
Wow.
don't do this. Let's push the ad spend
Mm,
again. Let's push things again. And we were scaling things just because that 1 week he would have paused his entire operation of kind of lower he ad spend. Think about all the outcome and possibilities and missing today on making 5 to 7K profit a week just because of that 1 week. It just doesn't make sense.
yeah.
It's almost like it does like kind of push you to never settle because you know that scenario that you would have missed. And that's
Yeah.
how I think about it.
Mm. And I think it's also really like thinking about it from the perspective of incentives, right? So I look at, for example, the incentive that we have as an organization to continue testing and continue optimizing and continue like trialing and continue like pioneering new ideas because like for us as a group, like I get so much of a thrill out of like seeing people copy our content, copy our ads, and use these pieces, and then they start to really scale their companies. I'm like, this is exactly what this relationship is designed to be like. So I think it's very like self-fulfilling. The better that we do, by extension, the better our clients do. It's very like complete overall. I think it's fantastic. Let's um let's go into a little bit on Elevate 8 and what we've been kind of doing there, specifically any of the focuses that have been kind of like worked on through Reese's business and how that's kind of like resulted in some of the growth that he's having as well.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of his current, like he's right now doing about 15K a week, so it's pretty solid overall in terms of performance. We're on target to get to 60K plus a month. So that's actually this is again a true story, and I'm talking about like facts here. When I talked to him the first time, he's like 30K was my target. Like if I get to
Mm,
30K, I'm good. Like that's a good target. Like I'll be very happy with this. But right now I'm telling him we need to 100, we need the million. And putting that by default is kind of the mindset of growing fast, but also having bigger targets and mindset to unlock your not only your potential, but change your net worth. Like looking
yeah,
at 30K like a month is just you're not at that higher net worth that you want, and you're not getting what you want from the market. If you have the opportunity today to make a million, you need to do it. If you don't get it, someone else would get it. So it's kind of a almost like a like you need to do the action. So right now, what we're doing, we're scaling the ad spend aggressively every single week. Like we have a call where we look at the ads, and my goal for him is we push that 100%. So if we're spending 5,000
right,
this week, we're going to look at spending 10,000. But it doesn't have to be 10,000 unless we're profitable. So we're actually gradually scaling, but the target is
got it.
10,000. If we're not doubling our ad spend, then we're not doing everything we need to do. So it's almost like I'm telling him, hey, what are we missing
Wow,
here so that we can push to that level fast? And we worked
wow,
on a lot of things. So scaling the ad spend, I'm giving him the new creatives that we're testing with Bisous, the one that worked super well, and he's implementing that right now to scale even aggressively.
got it, got it. I see. That's and just to go into that a little bit, so in terms of, I know that Reese had like no previous experience specifically, like there was no exact kind of like business background, business acumen, e-commerce experience whatsoever. How challenging do you think it is for people to be able to make that shift and start to like think as if I'm like an employee versus start to think like I'm spending $10,000 a week on ads? You know what I mean? It's like it's such a big kind of like adjustment in terms of like how people think.
Yes. So it's actually, I think for him, this transition was more of like a structure of like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you
Mm,
doing this? You're doing this to make money and also to change your life, to control your fate, control your destiny. If you think about it, it is that's the driver. Like, why are you doing this? I actually asked him like in a call, like, why are you doing like all of this? And you're trying to move from this industry that you're in to this new one. Like, there's always reasons. And one of them is you want to control your destiny, you want to build revenue, you want to really build something big, you want to change your environment. So you don't want to stay at the level you are. And when
mm,
we looked at that, well, like after looking at this, how can you do that? You need to look at other businesses, what they're doing, and try to absorb an action as soon as possible. Coming in without any knowledge on ecom, you need to observe and learn from others so that you don't do these mistakes. Because if I was to share with you, let's say over 30, $40 million of mistakes that I did, you can actually build from that a very fast business, and you can learn all these
Mm,
things and implement them. And that's, I think, the leverage he really used in his business is really looking at all the mistakes. Okay, this is what this company is telling me to do. They already have all these tests done. I can just implement this and win, and I can win fast. But he's not, like, I would say, coming in with the mindset of like, I'm not going to be doing the actions. I'm not going to be doing this. I'm coming in from, like, I don't have experience in ecom. It's more of, I know I have no experience, and that's why I'm working with this team, and that's why I want to trust them and kind of learn from that to move faster to my goal. And as I mentioned, it's about learning. So he's really observing and doing the actions, even with no previous experience. If you observe someone do something and they explain this to you multiple times, you're gonna do it and you're gonna make money.
mm. I think it's so true. How the question that I have around this as well is like um, the learning component, right? Because like let's say like how do I develop the experience to be able to make my own decisions as well? Because I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, okay, so if a lot of what I do is like, all right, well, I'm kind of emulating what you guys are doing. I'm copying the directions. I'm following very closely. Do you think that it challenges perhaps like people's own development of their own learning, or do you think it kind of helps them to understand what works, get the results, and then be more hungry to learn as well? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I think actually, just in terms of observation, let's say we're like trying to learn something, let's say driving. Like, I can show you how to drive. Like, I'm like, hey, you need to do this and do that. But if you practice and I'm sitting like on the side just telling you, hey, you need to do this, just make sure you do this decision. When you see this, do this. So I'm
Mm,
actually guiding you in the process, and you're almost like just doing the same thing, but you're getting the direction and the kind of positive push to keep doing it. Problem with the e-com is, in general, there's uncertainty. You don't know the next thing. It's almost like you're
mm,
walking in the dark and you have no lights. And I'm coming in, I'm telling you, you keep walking, I'm behind, I'm telling you, make sure to turn now, because now we have something that we need to do. And it's almost like I'm guiding you in the dark, but you need to do the actions. So I think in his case, it's observation, but also faith in the team, so that we can push him to that next level. Because as I mentioned, he was saying 30K was the limit, like that was a good, like I'm good with this. And I'm almost telling him, no, you're not. We're gonna get to that 100K, that million. So I'm actually raising the bar for him so that he can push to explore the potential of his business entirely and benefit from all that. So I think there is like a lot of
mm,
component mindset, but also guidance and push. So you get all of this when
mm.
you're being.
And it's that standard raising, you know what I mean? Like you reach that level only to realize there's another level and there's another level and there's
Yes,
another level,
that's fine.
so I loved I was at that event I shared with you earlier last week with Patrick Bet David and all of his kind of like other kind of like clients and people in his community, and we were at the Mar-a-Lago hotel, or Mar-a-Lago residence. And the one thing I thought was fascinating, I hadn't actually heard this definition specifically of capitalism. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like the four pillars of like capitalism, and so how it's kind of defined is like the freedom to buy something, the freedom to sell something, the freedom to succeed or like win and actually make it, and then the freedom to actually fail, right? And so the interesting thing that he mentioned was also just like that last aspect in terms of the freedom to fail, or feeling that like fear sometimes of like I might not make it. It's like,
Mm.
um, and I think it's just to this point of Reese, like, scaling and going from 30K a month to 100K a month. And I'm sure we'll push him to multiple six figures, even seven figures a month. The freedom to fail aspect, I think, ties in really well to that, because if you don't try and you don't really give it your all, somebody else will. Somebody else won't be as afraid and they'll take your market. And I think that's something for me that I'm constantly like conscious of how is my behavior? Like, is my behavior aligned with, like, there's probably someone else who's more hungry than me. They'll probably do it for cheaper. They'll probably do it for longer. You know what I mean? That they won't sleep. They'll sacrifice more. And so, like, that constant awareness of, like, okay, I'm scared, but somebody else is probably less scared and they're taking your money. And I think it's a very interesting way to think in terms of like this strategy or the application, or going from certain levels of 30K to 100K and upwards. It's like it's your responsibility to do it. Like, it really is. Like, once you have proven that product market fit and you're like, this works, you really need to exercise that as much as you can as possible and maximize your upside because hey, someone might come along and go, thanks for the idea. I'm going to do things that you won't be able to do. So it's
Yes.
fascinating. Yeah.
Yes, and it's come back to everything we mentioned today in terms of, optimization of the business, being obsessive, doing the work. If you're not doing it, someone else will do it. Optimizing the ads, learning how to run the ads, learning how to do things, and working on the conversion rate, doing the boring job. Every time you wake up and you're not doing the action, someone else is doing them, and then they take in the market, and then you ask about why you're not making money. Probably you're not doing the actions.
Mm. This has been a very direct, helpful, tactical kind of conversation, Hammond, and I think that I really want to encourage people to, if you're having challenges with other elements of your business in terms of profitability. I know that Hammond, you and I went through a lot in terms of how to maximize your profitability, how to increase your conversion rate, how to increase your traffic through generating better and higher quality creatives. What would you advise people to do, I guess, at this point?
Yes, so we went through all of these details in terms of our previous content. We went into a series of like how to optimize everything. It's going to be really obsession about the full funnel, and that's my view on it in terms of like you need to look at the full funnel, look at the CPC, conversion rate, AOV, optimize from the click to the conversion. So it's really looking at that the content we did. We went through everything in terms of how to optimize your profit.
Mm. Fantastic. So look, if you, yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this or you're having any of those challenges in terms of those areas, there'll be another video that'll be placed up above here that you can click on and you can go through and you can start to kind of like improve certain metrics in your business so that you can start to actually have results, more similar to some of the businesses that we are growing and scaling in our community. Hammond, always a pleasure. Thank you for this fantastic episode. Looking forward to next week's.
Yes, looking forward for the next one. See you
Awesome.
soon.